Hello and welcome. This is Sarah from smallbusinesssarah.com, and today we're going to be talking about what to do when you're using the Etsy Bank method to record your sales and fees within QuickBooks, and what do you do when you actually don't balance to what Etsy says is the Etsy Bank amount at the end of the month. So where to look for those problems and issues. So if you haven't watched the original video on the Etsy Bank method and how to record your revenue and expenses from Etsy within QuickBooks, watch that first. This is a follow-up video to help you figure out when you've got differences or problems and things of that nature. Okay, if you find my videos helpful, I would really appreciate a subscribe. Now, let's get started. So the first thing to look for, so you've done the work, you've posted the journal entry with the Etsy Bank method, and then you go and you want to compare to what the ending balance says. We're going to use December 31st to start with. You're trying to compare to December 31st, and what you have in QuickBooks does not equal what you have in Etsy at the end of the month. So the first thing you need to look at, especially if this is the first time that you've set up the Etsy Bank, I would take a close look at your beginning amount that you think is in Etsy Bank and your ending amount. So in our example here, if you were setting up the Etsy Bank for the first time, and you're going to start the Etsy Bank method as of January 1st, so you go ahead and create that Etsy Bank account and you plug in your beginning number. And you would most likely come here and you'd plug in this number right here, 1622. But that, in this instance, would not be the correct beginning number. Look right here. On December 31st, Etsy sent our bank account $29.93. But guess what? As of 12/31, that money has not arrived yet in our bank account. This is what we would call a deposit in transit. So although Etsy is saying, okay, we sent you the money, because it's so close to the end of the month, we're not going to see this money hit our bank account until January 2nd. So if we go with this amount here as our ending Etsy Bank number, that's going to throw us off big time. So the real amount that is still held by Etsy, it's held by Etsy until we see it hit our bank account, is really this $16.22 plus the $29.93. Okay, so this scenario, this deposit in transit, is going to apply when you're first setting up your Etsy Bank account. So if you were setting it up as of January 1st of 2019 and you needed a beginning balance, you need to think about this. If this did not arrive yet in your bank account, it needs added to your Etsy Bank beginning balance. Also, at the end of the month, let's say we had already set up our Etsy Bank as of December 1st, and now we're trying to reconcile in QuickBooks for the first time what our ending Etsy Bank balance should be compared to QuickBooks. Well, same thing. If we just went off of the 16, we're going to have an error. It's going to look like we have an error in QuickBooks. But really what's happened is this money hasn't arrived yet in QuickBooks. So our true ending bank balance on Etsy and in QuickBooks should be the $29.93 plus the $16.22 or $46.15. So that's the first place I would look. If you have an error between QuickBooks Etsy Bank and this number here, look for a deposit in transit. And a lot of this is going to depend on the timing of that deposit in the month. Okay, moving on. The next thing to look for, and I just happened to find this, I'm getting frustrated with some of these Etsy CSV reports. Okay, so here's a weird thing that I just discovered is happening. Here is a month, I just pulled up a month that had this weird thing happening in it. So normally for our Etsy entry in QuickBooks, we would grab this 230 number, the delivery, and card processing, and here's our entry. We'd credit Etsy sales, we'd credit shipping income, debit order processing, debit our Etsy fees. Now I just combined them all. This is from our monthly statement in the shop payment account. And then the difference would go to Etsy Bank. And you can see our Etsy Bank is a formula here because it's the sum of this, our income, less our expenses is what Etsy is eventually going to give to us. So that's why the Etsy Bank is a plug figure. It's not a plug, it's the actual figure, but that's how we work into what that is. And then you'll know in accounting, your debits have to equal your credits. Okay. So we go ahead, we post this entry, and when we compare QuickBooks to the Etsy ending bank balance, we're $4 off. So I started exploring and I ran the Etsy payment sales, which it's called one thing in the CSV where you get the CSV file, but then when it's run, it's called this, Etsy Direct Checkout. So over here, this gross amount is going to be our order amount plus our shipping plus any sales tax less discounts. So let me hop back over here, $314.23. So I'm going to write that down. So with my numbers here, I would expect that to equal this plus my shipping, because I don't have discounts, I don't have sales tax. And there we go. I'm off by $4. So why are the two Etsy CSV reports not working? Why is this order value plus my shipping, why is it not agreeing to this gross amount column here? $4. What's that about? So I investigated, I started comparing the lines, and I found it was this transaction right here. So this transaction says $114.32. And if I come back over here, they reverse the order on the reports, so that's nice. That's this transaction up here. So if I take $88 plus $22.32, this is a formula. I get $110.32. So why are they saying $114.32 when this column and this column equal $110.32? Well, guess what? It's Giftwrap. So for whatever reason, because I looked up the actual order to discover what that $4 difference was, in their infinite wisdom, Etsy on this sold order CSV file, which is the most helpful for our purposes because it breaks out delivery, it breaks out discounts, it breaks out sales tax, it breaks out our order processing fee. This is the most helpful CSV report they provide us. It does not include in these important numbers gift wrap income. Why? I don't know. So if you do a lot of gift wrap, that is going to create a problem for you here. So you can just do this formula over here to check. Like you could literally just do, this should be this plus this, and then you could go all the way down, and wherever there's a difference, then assume it's gift wrapped. But I want to caution you about that because I've also noticed that if you run a shipping discount, that also can mess with these totals over here. So that's why I don't really have an easy answer for discovering your gift wrap number, because the shipping discount, if you provide it, it messes with this formula as well. So you kind of just have to pay attention. So if you're doing a lot of gift wrap in a month, you can at the end of the month just kind of do a quick formula, or you could come over here. Let me see here. I wish this was straightforward. I know it's not. You could just use, say, 314.23. That's really the number you want to get to. So if you're not agreeing, you could come over here and do 314.23 minus what I'm showing here, minus the shipping, and that's going to give me my amount that I need to bump this up for gift wrap. So that could be a way to do it. Or you could just say, you know what, I know Etsy's crazy, so I know it's probably from gift wrap, and I'm just going to plug it. So here's how we would correct our entry here. This is our base entry that we're using off of our, what we thought was a very helpful report, but is missing some key information. So what we're going to do is we're just going to bump this up. So our sales number needs to go up by 4. Okay. And what that does is that then bumps up our Etsy bank number by the 4. You'll notice now that this column, Etsy sales plus shipping, equals the 314, which was on the other page. And so that if we were off by $4, there's our difference. We just needed to bump that up by $4 for the gift wrap. Okay, so that's the gift wrap conundrum. If you are charging people for gift wrap, that could be a source of your error when you go to do the Etsy Bank method. I didn't include this in the original. Honestly, I just figured it out. But also, I don't really want this to muddy the waters for most people. This can get awfully confusing. Most people have it pretty simple and can just do the original calculation and be fine. This is just going to be an every once in a while thing, or for people who do a lot of gift wrap. Okay, so that could be a potential source of the error, why you're not balancing to the ending Etsy bank balance. The third thing is full refunds. Okay, so we have to go to a different month for that. By the way, it's kind of nice that my Etsy shop isn't doing a ton of business, because it does make it a little bit easier to see the whole picture and find errors of what's going on and get a better grasp on all these Etsy reports and their systems and things like that. Okay, so we're in a different month, and we pulled up our Etsy Order CSV. We're doing our entry. So this is what we do. 148, delivery, no refunds, because we have nothing over here. No sales tax, so I didn't add that. Here's our Etsy fees. And then this is a formula. The difference goes to Etsy Bank. So revenue less expenses is what we'll eventually get from Etsy. And then our debits and credits balance. But then we go and we put this in QuickBooks, and then when we're done, we compare our ending QuickBooks Etsy Bank balance to Etsy Bank in the payment account statements, and we're off. So we look for beginning and ending issues. We look at gift wrap. It's none of that. Well, in this case, it's because of full refunds. So if you have an issue, or if you have an instance where you completely refund an item to a customer, like in my case, it happens when they order something, they change their mind, and they want me to completely cancel out the order before I've ever shipped anything or done anything like that. Okay, so you'll notice here we are on line 14. And this is not showing any sort of a refund over here. So if we go to this same month, the Etsy payment sales report, look, we have 15 lines. Instead of 14, they have an extra line here for an order. And lo and behold, over here is a refund of $32.15. Why this information cannot also be on the Etsy Order CSV file, I don't know, but it's not. So in this case, we have a $32.15 refund, full refund, because you can tell it's a full refund because these are zeros. The adjusted amounts are 0. And so then Etsy is saying our full amount, our full gross is $222.70. This number, by the way, is before refunds. So Etsy reports a gross number, and this is what's going to tie to your 1099s. It's a gross number before refunds. After discounts, before refunds, if you want to be confused a little bit more. Okay. So I wanted to grab that number. So 32.15 and 222.70. Just so we remember what numbers we're thinking about. Okay, so here's how we're going to adjust our entry. Because Etsy reports a gross number on our, at the end of the year with the 1099s, we want to make sure we reflect the refunds correctly. So we're going to add this. And then we're going to add it to the refunds. Okay. So that will adjust anything accordingly. And now we have this amount, the Etsy sales plus shipping equals the 222.70, which was over on the other screen. So now in this case, so maybe I shouldn't have included this in this video, but it's helpful to know. It's one other crazy thing that's happening with these reports. By bumping up Etsy sales and refunds by the same amount, our Etsy bank really wasn't affected. But I guess the moral of this story is refunds are often a source of the problem. If you are struggling to figure out the right Etsy bank balance, then refunds would be another place that I would look. So beginning and ending balances, looking for deposits in transit, gift wrap, and maybe there's some other random things that are happening between these reports. So maybe that's another moral of the story. If things are not balancing, then what I would do is I would compare this number here. So everything that you put in your credit column, but actually you're going to have to take into consideration discounts. So this column, less discounts, if you had discounts here, should be agreeing with this column here. And if they're not on the monthly basis, then that's when you need to start hunting around for what happened. So the final thing on, if you've checked everything, if you've checked your beginning and ending balance, you've rechecked your journal entry, you've got your debits and credits in the right spot, sales, shipping, and sales tax need to be credit, expenses, refunds, discounts all need to be debits, and Etsy Bank should almost all the time be a debit. If you've double checked everything, it's not gift wrap, it's not refunds, it's not beginning and ending balance, then what I would do is I would plug it, especially if you're off by $5, $3, $9. Maybe I'm just a lazy accountant, but I don't like to chase down small dollar amounts. It just is not worth my time. So let's say I knew I needed to increase my Etsy bank to get it to agree. I needed it to add $136.50 to the Etsy bank. Well, I would just simply plug it, add in my $5, get my entry to work. Conversely, if I need this to be lower, I need this to be $126 in order to get it to tie to Etsy Bank, then I would simply plug it. In the expense side, why didn't that work? Oh, I subtracted from the expenses. I needed to increase my expenses. There we go. So I would simply plug it on the revenue side or the expense side. If it's a small dollar amount, you've looked around, it's just not worth your time to go hunting for a few dollars. And then the beauty is if you're ending with a good number, if you're ending with a number that does agree to the Etsy Bank in QuickBooks, then the next month you probably won't have the error. When I did my comparison of this column and the other column for all the months of the year last year, it was only a couple months where I was having a difference. So it doesn't come up all the time. And so a small plug just gets you back to square one so that you know you're not compounding the difference month after month. Don't be afraid to plug a small amount. It's just not worth it. And you can see how these reports, I mean, honestly, they're just lacking in some ways. And it makes it hard for us to do what we need to do. So we have to work with the tools that we have. This is the best tool we have. And if it's off by a couple dollars, then just plug it and make it work. So that's all for this lovely video about how to solve problems you might be having when you've done your Etsy Bank entry and you're trying to compare QuickBooks to Etsy Bank ending balance. I hope this is helpful. A little bit of a couple rabbit trails here. Leave me a question in the comments. I'll be happy to answer if I can. And like I said, if these videos are helpful, then I would appreciate a subscribe, a share, anything that you can do to help. Thank you very much and have a great day.